Thanks for tuning in to ARIRANG News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. A top U.S. diplomat has warned North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that any attempt at a nuclear attack will result in his destruction. The official also hinted that Washington could punish Chinese companies that facilitate North Korea's weapons program if Beijing does not address the matter itself. Kwon So-ah has more on this stark warning to the out-of-control regime.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would almost certainly be killed himself if he ever used nuclear weapons. Daniel Russell, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, told reporters that from Kim's perspective, he might have the ability to carry out a nuclear attack, but there is hardly any chance he would survive the overwhelming military response. Russell said for that reason, such a tactic cannot be his plan A. He also labeled North Korea's claim that it's developing nuclear arms for deterrence absurd and stressed the nuclear program weakens Kim's grip on power rather than making it stronger. These comments reflect Washington's toughest ever North Korea policy and come amid a wave of assertions from U.S. experts and politicians on the need for preemptive strikes on Pyongyang. South Korea's foreign ministry on Friday renewed its stance on the question of whether the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons in South Korea could be discussed by Seoul and Washington.
The South Korean government's stance on the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula remains unchanged.
Meanwhile, Russell also sent a message to China calling for the country to get tough on Chinese companies that aid North Korea's nuclear weapons program. He said if Beijing takes the investigations and punishments into its own hands, the U.S. won't have to do anything. But if not, Washington has the right to take action under UN Security Council Resolution 2270. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
In other news, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-an said Friday that the government will launch a task force later this month to review the new anti-graft law in response to a flood of questions about its interpretation and application. In a meeting with government ministers, Prime Minister Hwang said there was bound to be some confusion related to the law, which directly affects an estimated 4 million people as it just went into effect last month. He also urged the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission and other legal bodies to come up with clear guidelines on the law as controversies remain over what's legal and what's not. In response, the Commission, which will oversee the law's implementation and investigate infractions, said it's planning to allocate more of its full-time staff to providing an authoritative interpretation of the law and deal with the soaring numbers of inquiries. Starting next week, the Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery are expected to receive individual compensation funds, part of the landmark agreement between Seoul and Tokyo on the so-called comfort women issue. According to the Reconciliation and Healing Foundation, which manages the 1 billion Japanese yen sent from the Japanese government to support the victims, 29 of the elderly women or their families have indicated they'll accept the 100 million won. That's roughly $90,000 US allotted to each of the 46 victims that were alive as of December 28th, when the deal was sealed. As for the deceased victims, 20 million won, or about $18,000, will be given to their surviving family members. However, the foundation still has some work to do. Some of the women refused to take the money, saying the December deal lacked sincerity on the part of Japan. Samsung Electronics has announced it'll incur billions of dollars in losses from the end of its Galaxy Note 7. For the first time, the world's leading smartphone maker has officially commented on its potential future losses after revising down its earnings estimate for the third quarter. Kim Min-ji has the numbers.
Ditching the ill-fated Galaxy Note 7 is expected to cost Samsung Electronics another $3 billion over the next 2 quarters. In a statement, the tech giant says it expects the termination to cut fourth quarter earnings by about $2 billion and another $1 billion in the first quarter of next year. Samsung also recently revised down its earnings estimate for the third quarter to reflect the losses. The company expects an operating profit of roughly $4.6 billion for the July to September period. That's down from the estimate of $6.9 billion released last week. Based on the new estimate, Samsung's operating profit is down about 30% from a year ago and the lowest since the third quarter of 2014. The wiping off of over $2 billion comes from the cost of recall as well as refunds and replacement, stock clearance and marketing. Taking all that into consideration, the world's largest smartphone maker is expected to incur a total loss of roughly $7 billion.
The majority of the users will want a refund rather than replace with a S7 or S7 Edge because they originally wanted a large device with the pen function, so there's no substitute in the market at this point, so they'll probably go for a refund, and that will cost Samsung.
Earlier in the week, Samsung said it will end production of the Note 7, in effect announcing it will discontinue its flagship phablet less than 2 months after its launch. The decision came after reports of at least 9 replacement handsets catching fire, with incidents occurring mainly in the United States. Samsung says it'll try to make up for the loss by expanding sales of its flagship Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge models. It'll also use this as an opportunity to focus on enhancing product safety through changes in its quality assurance procedures. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
An explosion at an oil facility near the southeastern port city of Ulsan has killed 1 worker and injured at least 5 others. The blast occurred Friday afternoon at a complex belonging to the Korea National Oil Corporation in Uljin County on the outskirts of Ulsan, where police said an above-ground oil pipe exploded while workers were removing a storage tank connected to it. The oil company is in the process of moving its storage tanks underground. The construction workers, 2 of whom are in critical condition, were reportedly employed by a subcontractor. The police will be investigating in cooperation with the National Forensic Service. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. More to come on News Center in 2 hours' time. Bye for now.